Inside the Crips, life as a top gangster. The Crips is a gang with the reputation of being called one of the most notorious and violent gangs in all of America. We are talking about the same Crips who are responsible for the extensive drug abuse, thefts, rapes, and murders in LA County in the 1990s. Living as a member of the Crips involves a unique set of challenges and experiences that we will discuss in more detail. Are you curious about the world of the Crips and their criminal empire? Then subscribe to our channel and unravel their secrets together. When you hear about the Crips, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Let's start by talking about the origin of the Crips. The Crips are a notorious and violent gang that originated in Los Angeles in 1969, making them one of the oldest and most powerful gangs in the area. While their influence is primarily in LA, they also have some presence in other regions. The gang was founded by Raymond Washington and Stanley Williams, who brought together two separate gangs from the east and west sides of LA. This alliance was formed in response to the rampant gang violence in the area, which prompted many gangs to form alliances to increase their chances against rivals. The rise in gang activity during the 1950s can be attributed to various factors, including racial segregation that excluded African American children from mainstream activities and high levels of unemployment and poverty after World War II. These conditions likely contributed to the growth of the original Crips. Let's talk about some of the famous Crips. 1. Nipsey Hussle. Nipsey Hussle was a rapper and entrepreneur who had a connection with the Rollin' 60s neighborhood Crips gang. He grew up in the Crenshaw neighborhood of Los Angeles and was known for advocating for his community while remaining true to his gang roots. 2. Eazy-E. Eazy-E was a rapper and founding member of the notorious Compton-based gang, the Compton Crips. He grew up in a time when the Crips were rapidly gaining momentum and has been nicknamed the godfather of gangsta rap for his contributions to the genre. 3. Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg is a rapper and actor who has openly talked about his affiliation with the Rollin' 20 Crips gang based in Long Beach, California. He has referenced the gang in some of his songs and has been known to wear blue, the color associated with the Crips. Number 4. Raymond Washington. Raymond Washington was one of the founders of the Crips gang in Los Angeles during the late 1960s. He formed the gang with Stanley Williams and is credited with developing its structure and philosophy. Washington was murdered in 1979, and his death led to further violence and fragmentation within the gang. 5. Stanley Williams. Stanley Williams was a founding member of the Crips gang in Los Angeles. He was later convicted of multiple murders and sentenced to death, but during his time in prison, he became an anti-gang activist and wrote several books aimed at preventing youth from joining gangs. Williams was executed in 2005. Now let's talk about the clothing of the Crips. The color blue has been associated with the Crips gang for some time, and it has an interesting backstory. One of the founders of the Crips, Buddha, was known for wearing a monochrome outfit with blue Levi's jeans, a blue shirt, and blue suspenders. However, he was murdered in a shooting in 1973. In response, people started wearing blue bandanas to show support for Buddha, and from then on, the color blue became a symbol of the Crips gang. The gang members have been known to wear sports hats and shoes. Certain sports team logos have been adopted by different gangs in Los Angeles as a way of showing their affiliation. The Wolverines football cap has been adopted by the Main Street Mafia Crips, the North Carolina Tar Heels basketball hat by the Rollin' 90s Neighborhood Crips, and the Florida Marlins baseball cap by the Rollin' 50s Neighborhood Crips. The Minnesota Twins baseball cap is popular among the Rollin' 30s Crips, and the Milwaukee Brewers baseball cap is favored by the Rollin' 40s Crips. The Crips are involved in many crimes throughout their entire existence. Around the late 1970s, the Crips engaged in various illegal activities and divided into approximately 40 sub-gangs. This internal division led to intense fighting among themselves, which concerned Washington, who always aimed to prevent the Crips from infighting. However, before Washington could intervene, he was killed in a drive-by shooting in mid-1979, and the culprit was never identified. The Crips suffered another blow when their leader, Williams, was arrested for allegedly committing 4 murders in early 1979. Williams was later convicted and sentenced to death by lethal injection in 2005. Williams had always wanted to be the leader of the biggest gang in the world, and he may have achieved that before his death. Following the loss of both their leaders, the gang struggled to maintain unity, resulting in a split down the middle into 2 sides. Despite neighborhood and internal battles, the 1980s proved to be a profitable time for the gang. The rising popularity of crack cocaine provided an excellent business opportunity, allowing the Crips to expand to other parts of the United States, grow in numbers, and become one of the largest gangs in the country with almost 30,000 members nationwide. The Crips have a reputation for engaging in activities just for the fun of it, such as stealing cars for joyriding, committing vandalism, and using graffiti. They are also involved in robbery, larceny, and gambling, among other crimes. However, due to their size and notoriety, they are involved in more severe criminal activities that guarantee substantial jail time. Currently, the Crips are still involved in drug trafficking, and they have expanded their trade to the black market, specifically in the illicit firearms department. They also engage in the usual robbery and vandalism, and they appear to be thriving. Los Angeles is notorious for being a center of gang activity and culture, having produced 2 of the most notorious street gangs of modern times, the Crips and the Bloods. This violence and influence has spread throughout America and has infected every aspect of trade, culture, music, fashion, and film. Significantly, the documentary Crips and Bloods Made in America suggests that black children had little outlets at that time, such as not being allowed to join the Scouts in that area. This led to the formation of more gangs in the following years. In the 1950s, car club gangs such as Laredos, Slossons, Gladiators, and Crystals emerged, which competed for territorial control, and rival gang members would attack each other if found in the wrong territory. The LAPD made sure that black people did not cross into white neighborhoods, and the gangs met for organized face-offs using nothing but their fists. As violence increased, so did the weaponry, and years later, guns replaced fists. Towards the end of the 1960s, organized criminal gangs took over, and the BB Avenue Gang was founded by Raymond Washington, which was renamed the Crips and then later the Crabs. Raymond Washington's charismatic leadership inspired others to join, and in 1971, gangs from the East and West unified, forming the Crips. In 1972, there were 6 Crip gangs, and they made money by robbing and extorting non-gang members. As they expanded, they began to encroach on the territory and operations of rival gangs. The Bloods emerged in response to this, led by T. Rogers, who was fed up with being outnumbered by the Crips. He and other gangs, including the Piru Boys of Compton, the Athens Park Boys, and the Lovers, had a meeting and unified under one name, the Bloods. They chose the color red to symbolize blood and to contrast the blue of the Crips. The Crips still heavily outnumbered the Bloods, and they began targeting them. Gang face-offs broke out across all South Central LA, marking the beginning of deadly open warfare between the 2 factions. The Bloods bunk 2 guns to defend themselves from the massive onslaught by the Crips. The rapper Snoop Dogg has been open about his affiliation with the Rollin' Twenties Crips gang in Long Beach, mentioning them in some of his songs. Despite this, he remains one of the most beloved members of the music industry after rapping for more than 25 years. Although some fans might be shocked to hear that their fate has always been open about his fondness for drugs, particularly marijuana. Meanwhile, Nipsey Hussle, who was also a rapper, was affiliated with the 60s neighborhood Crips. He was born in LA and was known for his activism and business endeavors outside of his music. Unfortunately, he was shot multiple times in March 2019, and many believe it was gang violence that led to his untimely death at just 33 years old. Lastly, Eazy-E, who was nicknamed the Godfather of gangsta rap, grew up during the peak of the Crips in California and was a member of the gang. In Japan, the Crips have been known to operate in the entertainment district of Kabukicho in Tokyo. Some Crip-affiliated individuals have reportedly been involved in prostitution and drug trafficking in the area, often working in collaboration with local Yakuza gangs. They've been reported to have connections with criminal organizations in other countries, such as Australia, where the gang has been known to collaborate with local motorcycle gangs and drug trafficking groups. In February 2023, Eric Holder, a member of the Crips gang, was sentenced to 60 years in prison for the murder of rapper and fellow Crip member Nipsey Hussle. The case was reported to involve a personal conflict between the two individuals. Recent reports suggest that new factions of the Crips are emerging in different cities, such as the East Side Hustler Crips in Portland, Oregon, and the Rollin' 60s Crips in Chicago, Illinois. Some experts believe that these new factions may be adopting different tactics and operating independently from the original Crip set, potentially leading to further fragmentation of the gang. What do you guys want to see in the next video? Let us know and subscribe to the Criminal Network.